So hello everybody, welcome. I can see the people are very eager to join. Great to hear. See, actually not here. Great, you can hear me. Perfect. We will wait a little bit and then we start. So, hello everybody. Let's start slowly. Welcome to this webinar. I will let you know that this webinar will be recorded and you will access the recording on Europe webpage. So we'll start recording right now. Yeah. So welcome everybody. Nice to see you all. Let's start on the basics about Eurostars rules. As I'm Laura Konga-Jäger, I represent Latvia's national funding agency, and I will let you short briefing about Eurostars rules. Nedan, can you please? We want for you to be aware that there is two sets of Eurostars rules. One is the general rules set by Eureka Secretariat and all national countries that you need to follow to be eligible to participate in Eurostars. For example, the project main lead is innovative SMEs from Eurostars country. The consortium must consist at least from 2 participants from 2 different countries. The no participant is more responsible for 70% of the project budget. But there is also other set, and it's about national funding rules, because you will receive funding from each country separately. Like Latvian participants will receive funding from Latvia, German participants will receive funding from Germany, Spain from Spanish agency. So for you to be eligible for Eurostars, you definitely need to check with your national funding agency about national funding rules and if you are following them. For example, Neden, please, can you? For example, this is imaginary Eurostars project. As you can see, it consists from Germany, Latvia, Spain, and Estonian participants. And you can see that each of our countries have separate funding rules. We all support small and medium enterprises, of course, but some of us are also supporting universities and research institutions. Some of us only support them if they go together with other companies, small and medium. Also, the state aid percentage for each of organizations and countries may vary. The same goes for funding amount and other specific funding rules. So again, please, before you prepare your proposal and ready to submit them, please check with your national funding agency. Give us a call, write us an email. You can find our contacts on Eureka website. And Nedan, you can go to yours. Yeah, you can see these are all the countries that participate in Eurostars. And now I will go to Nedan. He's our main presenter. He's Eurostars Independent Expert Panel Chair, and he will give you the insights on what experts are looking for when they check your proposal.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nenad Buljan, and I'm member of Independent Evaluation Panel since 2015. And last 2 years, I'm acting as the IEP chair. So everything that I'll be talking about today is based on my experience and cases that we have seen in IEP. But there is always something specific that you might have in mind. So at the end of this webinar, we'll have some time for questions and answers, and then you'll be able to ask your questions, and I'll try together with other colleagues from Eureka to answer all of your questions. So for Eurostars application to be really good, there are three pillars on which it is based, and all three pillars are equally important. So it's quality and efficiency of the implementation, its impact or market and commercialization section, as well as excellence or innovation, research and development part of the application. And once again, there is no more or less important part of the application. All three parts, all three main criteria are equally important. Talking of quality and efficiency of the implementation, Eurostars projects are meant as international and collaborative projects. So bear in mind both international and collaborative part. When you are presenting your quality, you are supposed to present sufficiency and preparedness of all the resources required for execution of the project. Of course, the first and most important part is consortium. So you should create or form really good and competitive consortium, taking into account that different profiles of participants in consortium are adding to the quality. Then you're expected to present managerial experience in projects of similar size and type. Think of synergistic effects of collaboration. I'll talk about that a bit later. Present how do you plan to share risks and benefits within the consortium, because these shares should be proportional to contribution of the partners. You're expected to present project methodology and timeline in which you plan to execute the project, and to elaborate the costs that will appear during the project, and to justify these costs, to explain that they are really realistic and required. There are a couple of do's and don'ts here. So talking of quality and efficiency, try to create balanced consortium, which means that it should, of course, include innovative SME or SMEs, but it would be also advisable to have some partner who is close to market, who can speak in the language of potential user or consumer. And having some academic or scientific institution is also beneficial, because you add some scientific merit to the consortium. As I mentioned before, Eurostars projects are meant to be collaborative. So think of synergy not in terms of being complementary to each other, but working together, all of the partners. We have seen a number of projects where some partners are working in only one work package, or you have very few common points, so each partner is working on its own, and that's not really synergistic. So think of joining. Of course, if somebody is working on something very specific, maybe not all the partners can contribute to that, to these tasks, but they should be involved in terms of exchange of knowledge and ideas. So having contribution in majority, or if possible, all the work packages by all the partners would be certainly beneficial, because that way you are sending message that partners are really collaborating and creating or generating some synergy. When talking of costs, don't just list the cost, but try to elaborate not in too many details, but why is subcontracting required, what materials are required, what are the costs, or at least major costs of those materials and subcontracting, so that the expert evaluating your proposal can have better insight in your costs. As Laura mentioned before, there are specific national rules. So my advice would be, if there are some rules which are specific for your country, mention it directly in your application, because not all the experts are aware of all the national specific rules. So as an example, Netherlands doesn't finance project management activities. So if you have a work package project management and there you have zero costs, that can seem strange to the experts evaluating your proposal. And therefore, I advise that you write in a description of that work package that according to national rules, there will be no funding. So maybe you can even put some personnel, some number of person months which will be used for that, and then cost zero, explaining that this is not because people will work for free, but just because the national funding bodies don't allow for these costs. What you should avoid in terms of quality and efficiency, you should never subcontract core project elements, which is project management and key research activities, because if you don't have capacity to do these core activities, then your application will certainly not be highly scored, because you should have some core competencies within the consortium. Talking of timeline, I have seen that people are non-critically extending project duration. So having low average workforce engagement is one of the indicators that something is wrong with the project. For instance, if you have an IT project with duration of 36 months and you have average workforce engagement of 1 person month per partner, that doesn't show real agility of the project, because things in IT industry are happening very fast, and you can't afford, due to competition, to heavy competition, to wait too long to get to the market. So try to shorten the duration as much as reasonable, but extending it for no reason. Of course, sometimes it's required to have longer duration, but then again, if it's for some reason, for some specific reason required, then explain it in wording what is the reason for having such a long duration. And finally, of course, if you are trying to include unrealistic costs, that will also not work for you, because the experts who are assessing your application will check and verify the project costs on specific markets. And if your cost expectation seems either exaggerated or underestimated, that will be reflected in the score that you will get for your application. Also, try to be realistic in defining the volumes of goods and services which are required. And again, talking of engagement of own workforce, try to be realistic in that. Having said that about the own workforce, there is another thing which I would like to draw your attention to, and that is that small and medium businesses sometimes assign a full workforce to work on the project, which is nice, showing commitment, but on the other hand, somebody has to earn money in order to secure proper functioning of the company. So it's not realistic if you have 5 employees and you assign all of them to work on the project, because who will then make some revenue, and how will you fund your activity? So be cautious with that. Talking of impact or market and commercialization, what is expected from Eurostars project is rapid commercialization in European and global markets. There is a small exception for biotech and pharma projects, which are not required to get on the market, but to get to clinical study stage within a predefined time. But the idea is to get to the market as soon as possible. When talking about the impact, you should, or you are expected to present thorough market understanding and awareness of the market. First of all, of course, you should describe market environment, and there I would emphasize importance of recognizing market demand. Why I'm saying that is that specifically in biotech and in pharma projects, if you are developing a molecule that you want to sell to big pharma, then your market is actually very limited. You have very few large pharmaceutical companies to which you can sell your invention. So your market is actually very small, but market demand out there can be huge. It can be global, because if you are treating some specific illness which is appearing all over the world in numbers of cases, then there is a good justification on the market. So try to differentiate between the two. Market demand is one thing, and market size is another thing, especially when talking about pharma projects. Of course, getting to the market is not easy story. It takes a lot of effort, and therefore you should recognize market entry barriers which are in front of you, and can be competition, can be regulations, can be whatever. You should identify these barriers, and you should also present your competitive position, so showing that you are aware of your direct and indirect competitors. And if you are already present in the market, you should present that, and how present and how recognized on the market you are, or some of consortium members are, because the stronger market position exists, easier it will be to place the new development on the market. When talking about commercialization, it's also advisable to present experience of consortium members in commercializing innovations, and prepare a reasonable commercialization plan, which will include not only expected revenues, but also expected costs, so that evaluators can recognize that you have taken into account all important things in commercialization. Talking of sustainable development goals, which are also required to be presented, or your impact to SDGs, my advice would be that you focus on the small number of really relevant SDGs. So 2 or 3 of them. I've seen applications where people were addressing 10 and even more than 10 SDGs, which is not realistic. So if you are only slightly touching some SDG, it doesn't make sense to present that. So focus on 2 or 3 most important, and elaborate it in sufficient detail. And finally, economic, social, and environmental risks. you should present how your project is or result of your project will be reflecting in economy, in society and environment, but only identifying risk is not sufficient because only identifying, and we'll talk about technical risk later on, and the same applies for technical risks. Just identifying them doesn't say anything relevant. So you should quantify them, how serious they are, and you should also propose some mitigative activities. So if some of these risks happen, what and how you plan to do in order to overcome it. In terms of do's and don'ts for market and commercialization, assess real market demand. And in doing that, people are mostly talking about financial value of the market, which for you is not fully relevant, I would say. Namely, financial value would be interesting for financial investors who are trying to multiply the investment that they're making. For you, it's more important the volumes that you planning or you have to generate. So if you planning to produce, I don't know, 1,000 of something on a market where the demand is 1 million, that's one story. But if you are talking about value of your results and say we'll produce something worth 2 million euros and the total market is 500 million euros, it says nothing because it doesn't say how much you will face the competition. And what does it mean? That if I can make an example, if you're talking about selling the cars, for instance, you have cars which are starting from, I don't know, 15, 20,000 euros and going up to a couple of hundreds of thousands. So these things cannot be compared to each other. So therefore, I suggest that you are thinking more in terms of volumes than financial values. Don't be afraid to present competitive solutions and their virtues, because there is a competition on the market and it's certainly worth something. So recognizing strong points of competition doesn't say that you are weak. It shows that you have done your homework and that you have analyzed what is out there and what can be found on the market and how you are planning to address these things. And of course, talking of market share, try to indicate your market share expectations and be realistic in that, because two-digit market share expectations are already very challenging to achieve, so don't be over optimistic. Talking of market entry barriers, as I said before, there are a number of different groups of barriers. Some of them are regulatory, and that can seriously impact your timeline, because for passing some regulatory checks and getting some approvals, it can take a couple of months, maybe even a year. So you should not be over optimistic in terms of if it's 6 to 12 months to get the approval. Calculating with 6 months can fire back on you, because you can run into problems if the whole procedure gets longer than that. Another thing which I would recommend to consider are challenges of geographical coverage, because for some products, especially services, it's different to secure proper coverage all over the globe because of time difference, if nothing else. So if you want to have online help for someone, you should count that people, that your future customers can be in different time zone, and that you have to secure availability of your support agents in their working times. So that means additional costs and maybe even further complication if we are talking about languages or whatever. Another challenge which is linked to geographical coverage is also warranty and fixing or replacing malfunctioning devices. So that's again something that you should think of arranging a local support, because if you are trying to fix something from Europe or things in South America or Asia, that will require a lot of time and effort and of course money for them. So identify market entry barriers, but also propose some measures how to overcome these entry barriers, and what are you planning to do to get to the market hassle-free. And presenting sustainability of competitive advantage is also something which I would strongly recommend to invest effort in that, because if your competitive advantage is not sustainable on long run, then most probably you will have challenges on the market. So one part of sustainability can be protection of intellectual property rights, which can be registered like a patent or trademark, or informal like trade secrets. But think of that. Excuse me. Think of that protection and how can you assure that. Another thing which would be advisable is that before you even start, you conduct a freedom to operate analysis, just to make sure that there is no one else who has already some IP rights in that segment, because if there is someone else having IP rights in your area, then you might have problem in operating that on the market, and you will have to do some negotiation about acquiring these IP rights. Present superior features of your solution and what will be value proposition for your future customers. And please don't put low prices as a major competitive advantage. Of course, if you are able to offer something which is price effective, that's good for you. But building your competitive advantage sustainability only on prices will backfire on you very soon, because no matter how cheap you do something, there will always be someone who is able to do it cheaper. Talking of don'ts, and that's something which I would like to really emphasize: never, but never ignore competition. I have seen the applications in which the applicants were saying that they don't have competition, and it cannot be further from the truth than I'm trying to point out, because in each and every segment of the market there is competition for something, unless you are able to develop completely new demand of customers, and that's something which I haven't seen so far. So if there is no direct competition, there is certainly indirect competition which can work, which can make your market entry more challenging. And just not to preach, but to explain you the difference between direct and indirect competition. So direct competition are those who are making, who are satisfying the same customer need in a way which is very similar to your way, and that's something which is being recognized very easily. However, there are indirect competitors who are satisfying the same consumer need, but in different way than you are doing that, and that is not so obvious, and therefore try to think of how somebody else can satisfy that need that you are trying to satisfy, and see if there are such companies in the market. Another weakness of the applications is superficial presentation of commercialization plan. So not presenting all the costs or neglecting some relevant associated costs is making a bad impression. Failing to define relevant distribution channels is also not good. And when mentioning distribution channels, I've seen, and that's somehow that became sort of standard, that everybody's talking about social networks and online distribution. But be cautious with that, because social networks can be a good means of presenting and distributing your products or services when you are talking about business to consumer. But talking business to business, social networks are not so strong a distribution channel, because if you are manufacturing or planning to sell some industrial equipment, I don't think that these social networks are the right channel for doing that. But it's up to you to decide. But whatever distribution channel you present, don't just list it, but try to explain briefly why do you consider that distribution channel as a proper for your solution. Of course, if you don't define target markets in terms of geography or some specific segments, it will also show that you haven't done your homework properly. And it's useful to define pricing strategies that you want to apply, especially if you have different pricing strategies for different market segments. For sustainable development goals, I already said that you should try to focus on a small number of those. So exaggerating with their number is not actually helping. It's showing that you are trying to impress someone, and people which are assessing your applications don't get easily impressed by these things. So rather focus on few SDGs and elaborate it well. Talking of risks, you should, as I said before, identify them, but also quantify, and then present some mitigation activities. When I say about the quantification of risks, those of you who are familiar with risk management will know that quantification means the likelihood of risk to happen and impact that that risk has on your future activities. So try to present at least these two dimensions. How likely is it to have such risk appearing, and what will be the impact on your project? And the last pillar is innovation, research and development, or shorter version is excellence. So Eurostars is looking for innovative products, processes, and/or services. Talking of that, you should present the actual state of the art, which is showing that you understand the playground on which you are trying to play, and trying to hide something which is already available on the market is not going to work for you, because people who are assessing the applications are familiar with the subject and they know at least majority of what's happening on the market. Think of applicability of generated new knowledge in other areas, and IPR strategy that you want to implement in order to maintain your competitive advantage. Recognize technical challenges which are out there, and the higher challenges are, the better scores you can expect, as long as you prove that you have capacity to solve these challenges, and that your specific knowledge and know-how will enable you to solve these challenges while others are not able to do it in that way. But talking about technical approach, don't forget to include sex, gender, and intersectional analysis. And again, technical risks are requiring not just identification, but also quantification and mitigation activities. In terms of do's, present good understanding of the current state of the art, and don't go for big words like breakthrough and so on, because if you say that something is breakthrough and it's really not, that is somehow affecting your credibility with the experts evaluating your application. So be very cautious about claiming that something is breakthrough, because if you say it's breakthrough and then in Google you have like thousands of hits for something like that, then it's very often not really breakthrough. Embrace high technical challenges, as I said before, as long as you have specific skills and knowledge which are enable you to address these technical challenges, and others will have difficulties to replicate your solutions. And talking of technical risk analysis, once again, identification, quantification, and mitigation. In terms of don'ts, don't think inside the box. So try to think broader than your project really is. Try to consider whether your developments will be applicable in other areas, and if the new knowledge that you are generating is applicable for something else. And you should spell it out. So even if the experts think that your generated new knowledge can be applied in some other areas, they are not supposed to reward you for that, because if you don't recognize applicability, then most probably you will not try to market it, and therefore the benefit of that is being lost. So if there is something where you can apply your generated new knowledge in some other area, spell it out and be specific. It's not required to go into details, but mentioning that it can be applied in other area with brief description will show that you are thinking on a broader range. Talking of gender dimension, it's important not to neglect that, and this is something which happens quite often. First mistake that applicants are doing is that they are focusing on team structure. So in team of 10, we have 5 men, 5 women, and that's for some of the applicants gender balancing. This is balancing of the project team as such, but what are you expected to present is that your technical approach addresses gender specifics. So if you are developing something for one of genders, you should be explicit in that and explain why is it for one gender predominantly, if not exclusively. And even if gender dimension is not relevant, you are expected to say that we have considered gender dimension, and for our project is not relevant, and therefore we haven't discussed it further. That's just one simple sentence, but can help a lot and can give some improvement in your scores, because if you don't mention gender dimension, then your score will be affected by that. And talking of IPR protection, don't limit yourself to formal protection in terms of patents, because sometimes it's even better to not to go for patenting, but to keep some things as trade secret, because once you file a patent application, you should disclose quite a lot of data, which probably you don't want to disclose, as that helps the others to skip some development steps and start from where you have already come. When preparing application, be methodical. Take your time, enough time for necessary preparation, because it is not only idea development, it's searching for partners, checking national rules, negotiating legal frame, and of course some time for writing application. So expecting to have high quality application prepared within 2 or 3 weeks is not very realistic. One of the things which I'd like to drive your attention to is negotiating legal frame. You are not requested to submit signed consortium agreement with your application, but try to discuss as much as possible of that and to agree with your partners about important things in your in sharing your project results, because I have seen projects which were scored very high, which had very good potential, and which were at the end not financed because after they went through whole procedure, they were not able to present consortium agreement within given time, and without consortium agreement, you cannot get funded. So although the signed consortium agreement is not prerequisite for the application, try to work on it in parallel and try to define as much of it as possible. And then, of course, you can sign it later, but make sure that you have agreed all the key points before you apply. It's very desirable to be ambitious in your project applications, but remain realistic in that. Don't be over ambitious. So when setting targets, try to make it reasonable and doable. Defining timeline, allocating required resources, and also very important, securing funding. Because you'll get funded by Eureka in one part, but you have to secure the rest of funding on your own, and therefore make sure that you will be able to do that. And finally, set clear and measurable and verifiable targets. So define milestones, deliverables, and KPIs that you want to achieve. And talking of milestones, include go and no-go decision points, which means that you are showing that you are taking care of funding, and if for any reason you are not able to prove or develop what you wanted to do, then it's better to stop a decent time than to go further and waste money for nothing. Also, talking of KPIs, it's not sufficient to define KPIs as such, but you should also give some target values that you want to achieve when talking of KPIs. If not properly presented, your idea as well as any other idea can fail, and likelihood of failure is higher. So presenting your idea, be clear and concise, focus on key elements, and don't go into too much detail. So provide sufficient information, but don't go into too much details, because it's just it can be difficult to follow. People who are assessing your applications are familiar with the subject, so there is no need for them to explain the very specific details, unless it's something which is really only a couple of people in the world doing, and I don't think something like that is happening. Also try to show self-confidence, but don't let it turn into arrogance. So as an example, don't write "if we succeed" it's much better to see when we succeed, so that you are not putting a question mark in whether that will be possible or not. You show the confidence, but also if you say, yeah, when we succeed, we'll cover the world and we'll have 80% of market, which is simply not realistic and shows the level of arrogance. Finally, failing with the application doesn't mean that you should give up. It happens every now and then that applications don't get funded for different reasons. But in such a case, go through feedback that you get and see what improvement you can do based on that feedback. Sometimes change of scope of the project or even consortium composition is worth consideration. Empirically, if resubmission is improved, it gets a better assessment from the IEP. And in some cases, maybe you should even consider writing a completely new application than just updating the old one. Talking of that, I would like to tell you that if you are resubmitting your application, at least fix the dates, because I've seen applications which were resubmitted and they were almost not touched. So I recall one example which was really extreme. The application was like 80 pages, and out of these 80 pages, less than one page was updated. Everything else remained the same, including dates which were outdated in the new case. So don't just copy paste the old application. Go through it once again, fix things which were suggested in the feedback, and my recommendation would be that if possible, and some things can be improved even without funding, so you can do some small steps forward. So if you submitted your application in September and for some reason it doesn't get funded, for March application, show that in these 6 months you have done something, that there were some improvements, things were moving forward, because that way you are showing commitment and preparedness to make things happen. So that will be it from my side, and now I'm open for your questions.
Thank you, Nedan. It was very, very excellent as always. We already had some questions. So I will start with the first one. How often do you get approved projects that seeks to bring new medical products through preclinical development towards regulatory approval? Much of the work required for such a project would have to be done by subcontracting, as SMEs presumably don't have these capacities in the house.
I'm not sure that I have understood the question, but I'll try to answer, hoping that I'm answering the essence of your question. So how often do we get application for pharmaceutical development? Very often. Biotech and pharma is always among the top areas. So IT and biotech and pharma are leading in terms of content. And yes, of course, if you are a small business, you don't have all the capacities, and sometimes you have to subcontract some of things, but these things are or should be, I would say, technical, so not the core competence. So so that you ask someone with the equipment and with the ability to do something according or based on your specifications. That's one thing, and that's okay. But if you are asking someone to develop something for you, that's another thing, and that shows that you don't have core competences, and therefore such subcontracting, it's better to have such company as a consortium member than to subcontract to such a company. I hope that answers your question, but if not, try again.
So the next one regarding non-critical extending project duration, love average workforce engagement. If you have, for example, a work package that takes 30 months and requires 8 person months, is this considered a low average workforce engagement?
Yeah, it very much depends on the content of the project. But if you are expanding 8 person months over 30 calendar months, that should be backed up by the fact like you're working something in agro industry and you depend on harvest. So basically you have to wait 9 months or whatever, or 12 months between two harvests, then obviously you cannot speed it up. But if you have the opportunity to do a job of 8 person months within 1 year, I don't see a reason for 30 months of extending. But again, it's very much dependent on the content of the project. But I would be very cautious with that.
We understand the developing a strategy of entering the market within 2 to 3 years after completion of the research phase acceptable. Entering the market is a whole project on its own, which is in our case requires building product site, bank loans, permits, etc. Many of these activities are not feasible to perform without research results. For Eurostars, it is planned to reach the market after 2 to 3 years the project ends. It's not like immediately you need to reach the market.
Yeah, I mean, based on Eureka rules, I think it's 3 years period that you have to get to the market after the project completion. So it's not that you finish project on December 31st and you should be on the market on January 1st of the next year. There is a reasonable time which is expected, but we have had one project in 2 or 3 calls ago when they wanted to develop something and commercialize it within 10 years, which is way too much. And therefore, I mean, there is a strict rule in Eureka guidelines. How much time does it take from project completion until commercialization? So there is no, it's clear, there is no discussion about it. But it's not the next day.
And it also depends on funding agencies a little bit, because for each country there is a little bit a different technology readiness level. As you may be aware of that, for example, in Latvia we support up to this level 8, but for some other countries it's up to this level 6, maybe 7. So it also depends how far you can actually get funding in these projects. So the next question is, if the product development is meant to be medical device, is planning for CE mark during the project duration appropriate, or should the consortium implement its acquisition during the project?
Yeah, there is no clear rule. I would put it together in a way that the project is, or the final result is being done within reasonable time. Because if, in order to apply for CE marking, you have to have almost everything done and prepared. So having project on hold for a year while you're waiting for CE marking doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's up to you to decide. There are, at least to my knowledge, there is no strict rule about it. If the funding for CE marking is highly challenging and you want to have that funding also partly through Eurostars, then you can you can include that CE application in the project. But if it's not so vital, maybe you can consider not including it in the project. It's really up to you. I think both cases are applicable.
And what about intellectual property rights when talk about software projects? What kind of property rights can be about?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in intellectual property rights, but as far as I know, in Europe, it's quite challenging to protect software with a patent. So you will have to talk to someone who is really expert in IPR protection. But with software, it's always challenging because it's difficult to prove that somebody has copied your algorithm or that they have abused your specific knowledge. Because if they see the idea done, they can develop their own algorithms and have similar or same results as you do, but maybe they have done it completely different. In the best case is if you look on AI and ChatGPT and Claude and other stuff, so they are providing similar results, and I don't think that they're using the same algorithms. The idea behind it is similar or the same, but the technicalities are different. So I don't know how to protect it. But my advice: don't hesitate to contact IP experts and see what and how can you do with it.
What to do in cases of smaller country consortiums applying to Eurostars, meaning that, for example, of new medical analysis procedure is taking place in a smaller country consortium, where data will be of smaller amount, but the core technology has massive potential in the European Union. Does that mean that the idea has to be given to a larger consortium and the applicant should reduce its role, or is there still a chance to apply as a smaller country consortium? For example, Estonian Latvia consortium will be less than in German and French consortium.
Yeah, I don't think that country size matters because if you are able to produce something which is innovative and you protect it, then the volumes that you are supposed to generate to satisfy the market needs are what makes the difference. But you can always, once you have everything in place and protected, you can always find a contract manufacturer if you are talking about physical device that you are producing. So it can be produced anywhere. So I don't see any difference in the country size when it gets to result of the project.
For consortium design, what do evaluators usually consider a strong justification for international collaboration beyond simply having partners from different countries?
Well, it's difficult to say because each evaluator has his or her own principles and the way how they're of course following the guidelines for evaluation, but each of us is thinking of things differently. So try to be reasonable and sensible and try to step into evaluator's shoes. What will convince you that international cooperation is really required and beneficial? There is one thing which I have forgotten to say before, and I would like to re-emphasize that. Now, according to Eureka rules, consortiums of 2 members are also eligible for funding. But having only 2 members is also bringing along high risk if something happens to one of these companies, whatever it be. The whole consortium is being broken, and therefore I would always, if I would be applying, I would never go in 2 only members consortium. I would look at least for 3, maybe even 4 companies, not having 7, 8, because that adds complexity with no reason. But 3 to 4 companies is, in my opinion, but that's not the rule. That's not something that I would assess the application against. But certainly having only 2 members in consortium brings along higher risk. And if you don't have a proper explanation how are you going to manage such a risk, then that will affect your score. For instance, just as an example, it doesn't have to be something really bad. I've seen cases where you had 2 companies in consortium, and then one of these small companies was acquired by another large company, which was not interested in that specific case. So they said, okay, we are getting out. And another company is then left without any help support. Of course, they can look for someone else, but it also takes time to find replacement partner and so on. So think of that as well when you are trying to build a consortium.
And it's always very important to find a good partner. Just add to this, because sometimes you can feel that they are just finding some random partner, they collaborate, make this consortium, but when they actually need to implement projects, many issues arises. So it's very, very important that you talk with your partners, that you discuss everything, including how you will solve the issues that may raise, and everything already when you prepare proposal. Because if if you don't find the correct partner, the project may fail, even if it's approved, implemented. So that's very important, that double check that you have chosen right. So the next question: how could the applicants best demonstrate the applicability of the solution when the technology is validated in one territory first and then tested in another territory with different market and logical conditions?
Well, it's hard to say, but you should present your value proposition. So what problems are you solving? And then if you present what is the problem that you are solving, then you can put it somehow in the frame of the local environment. And of course, most probably you will have difficulties sending air conditioning to the northern pole because they don't have high temperatures and they don't need cooling there. But still you can present that these specific benefits that you are offering can be used in different geographies, different markets, by different target groups if you want. And then it's not a problem as long as you can prove that there is a real market demand, real market need for that. Then it doesn't make difference where it was tested and when it gets to the application where it's going to be applied.
And regarding the KPIs metrics, how measurable should they be and realistic KPIs?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be absolutely measurable. Because if it's not measurable, then how can you track whether they are achieved or not? And what was the second part? It was measurable and realistic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, self-explanatory. If it's not realistic, then can you really use it as KPI?
So this is more about national funding rules. So do I understand correctly? If we are the project applicants, we should also find out the local rules applicable to the other partners from different countries. Yes, well, not exactly you. You can also contact other national funding agencies and NPCs and ask questions, but we advise that your potential partner contacts their own agency and ask these questions, because sometimes the eligibility rules are very precise. For example, I can check if the company has unpaid taxes or if it's not undertaking in difficulties, but I can only discuss these matters with that particular company, and I cannot give this information to other potential participants. So for that reason, you can always ask national rules in general, but we always advise the participants each reach their own national funding body and ask these questions. Am I eligible to participate in Eurostars? What are my national rules to participate? And then you receive the most excellent and suitable information for you, and then you can decide if you are eligible to participate and how can you improve, or everything is correct. So, and now the next question. So, is a proof of concept project supported by Eurostars if the intention after said project is to take it to market and expand it, or proof of concept is too low for a level?
That would be a question for someone from the secretariat, if they are with us.
There should be secretariat.
As far as I know, there are no strict rules in terms of technological readiness level, where you should start and when you should end. So from that point of view, it might be, but that's just my opinion. That's not Eurostars rule, that you can go for a proof of concept project as well. However, I'm not sure about the funding because proof of concept can be proven or not proven. So I don't know what happens if you are not able to prove what you wanted to prove. So obviously, for proof of concepts, both yes and no are acceptable results. But what happens if no happens? So if you get funded and you figure out that you cannot proceed further, that's something which will be questioned for either national funding bodies or even the secretariat as well. And again, I would like to stress that there is a defined time in which you should be able to utilize your your project results. So if you even successfully complete proof of concept project, if you don't, if you're not able to place it on the market within 3 years, then again you have a problem. So it might be that proof of concept is a bit too low in terms of TRL, but that's not a strict rule. At least to my knowledge, there are no strict rules which will prevent proof of concept in terms of TRL of applying for Eurostars project.
Yeah, this level can be a little bit too low. It's also answered from secretariat, but please, if you want to submit something like that, please contact us directly, and we can see what you are thinking about and if it's eligible. So the next question, what do you exactly mean and how can we show the managerial experience?
Yeah, that's thank you for that question because I was trying to make my presentation short. and then obviously I was not able to talk about everything in detail. So it's important for the applicant to have managerial capacity and experience with similar projects, similar in terms of size, in terms of financial value, and in terms of international component. So if you are applying now for a project which is worth 2 million euros and consortium has companies from 3 different countries, then it would be good if you have experience in managing similar projects. Of course, if you don't have it, it's not something that will disqualify you. But then you can say that you had national projects or internal projects within the company which were comparable in terms of value. So at least to present that you are able to cope with these things, because if you never managed a project which has more than one partner, so everything was internal, you never worked across borders, that's bringing additional risk into project execution, and then it will be reflected in your score. And of course, it's not required to explain all the projects in detail, but you can say as a reference that you have done 2 projects, I don't know, Horizon or whatever, value of that much money, and which you can give a project name and when it was executed, who was included, just to show reasonable level of competence and managerial experience.
Thank you. So next question. I understand that there is a big expectation of market understanding and competition and AP analysis. What if the consortium is about setting up a standard in the industry that should help all to face our market? Is it enough to state it?
I'm not sure that I understood the question. Can you repeat once again?
I understand that there is a big expectation of market understanding and competition and AP analysis. What if the consortium is about setting up a standard in the industry that should help all to face our market?
Yeah, well, setting standards is something which is very, very challenging, because if you want it to be standard, that's not good enough. There should be industrial or international or whatever body who is deciding about the standards and who can define something as de facto or de jure standard. So just your intention to create a standard, I don't think is enough. And my understanding is that as long as you don't get official approval from such a body, you cannot be sure that whatever you are developing will be accepted as a standard. Maybe it's a very outdated example, but maybe it illustrates the whole idea. If you are not too young, if you still remember video recorders, then you probably know that there were 2 standards, VHS and beta, where technically beta was much better standard in terms of quality, but VHS somehow overruled, and people who were developing beta were not strong enough to make it broad standard and acceptable. And then although from technical point of view that was something much better, it was simply not accepted, and today, or at that time, beta were not available. Beta cassettes were not available, only VHS. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but I hope it at least gives you the idea in which direction to go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And how about expertise in customer acquisition, pilot implementation, business scale-up? Would it be a shortcoming if this was subcontracting? Should the partner be used for it instead?
Yeah, I mean, customer acquisition is something that is a very important part of commercialization plan, and that's something which I would personally never entrust to someone else, because if I have something to place on the market, I would like to be a steering wheel. Of course, using some services from experienced agencies or whatever, it's fine. But I would prefer having partner which will be in it instead of subcontractor, because a partner will have not only commercial interests but other interests in success of such a project. So I would definitely go for partner.
How is advisable to include in the consortium a company that could become the future buyer of the solution to be implemented? Will they have to face costs to be part of the consortium?
Yeah, I mean, having potential customer as one of partners, or one of potential customers as a partner on the project is, in my opinion, adding value, because you have direct voice of the market with you, and somebody who is fully aware of what the customer needs are and how to solve this. So I would go for it. In terms of costs, what is acceptable in terms of costs? That's the question for national funding bodies, I would say, because there might be different country-specific rules in that area. But that's something which I think I mentioned in my presentation as well, that having someone who's close to the market in the consortium is certainly beneficial.
Well, from National Funding Agency side, we cannot support things that you all can already earn something. So if you already give the result to potential customer and they will pay you money for it, it will not be acceptable for our side. So again, in these cases, please contact our national funding body to just like clarify what you are meaning by that and what is your plan to use. So the next question, what level of details is expected in the commercialization plan to demonstrate that the product, process, or service can reach the market after project implementation?
It's difficult to talk about the level of details because there are specifics of different projects. So whether it's physical product or it's service or something else. But what I would expect from from commercialization plan presentation is that you show that you have considered potential revenues within future 3 to 5 years, and not only revenues, but that you have on the other side costs of operation and how much will it cost you to generate these revenues. Because if you expect revenues of let's say linear 1 million euros per year over the next 5 years, and you have costs, again for simplicity reason, linear of 1.2 million to deliver such service or product, so you are every year 200,000 euros short, and over 5 years it's 1 million short. And if you don't present how you plan to cover that minus, then you are in serious problems. So just listing expected revenues is not good enough, because there are costs on the other side, and you should be able to cover, maybe not in first year or two, but after some time you should be able to generate enough revenues to cover all the costs which are accumulated during the process.
Yeah, thank you. Next question. Should we have an extensive list of risks and mitigation plans, or does it have the opposite effect, showing that the proposal is not feasible?
Yeah, when it gets to risk analysis, you should consider having 20, 30, 40 risks is just uh, sort of exaggerating, because you should identify and address risks which have high likelihood or high impact on your project. So I would say around 5 major risks should be sufficient. Of course, if there are more risks, more serious risks, you should take them into consideration as well. And the fact is that the experts who are evaluating your application, they will check risks that you have foreseen and the risks which they think can happen to your project. So if you fail to identify some important risks, that should be reflected in your score. So there is no strict rule how many of risks you should identify. For instance, there is always a risk, I don't know, of natural disaster, but how likely is it that it will happen, that you will have flood or earthquake or whatever, and how much will it impact your project or results of your project? Because if you're in construction industry, then earthquakes or floods can have serious impact on your results. But if you are if you are working on some IT solution, on the software or whatever, earthquake or flood most probably will not have serious impact on the results of your project. So such a risk, although it is out there, is not really necessary, because if you go to each and every risk that might happen, like moon is falling on Earth or something, then you can have like 100 pages only of risk analysis, which doesn't make sense.
Okay, so this is, I think, very similar question that we already answered. Does the Eurostars consider pilot validation in real environments with real users, logistical data and commercial workflows as a strong element for demonstrating market readiness and impact? This can be such a high level, technological readiness level, that maybe countries will not fund if this is included.
Yeah, it's very much specific for the project. So talking in general about that is not will not give you the proper answer. But having experience and having something tested is adding value in a way, unless it's against the national rules about technological readiness level. But that's what I said before, that you should also present, when talking about the market, your market position, if you are on the market, if you have already placed some innovations on the market, because that shows your experience and ability to do something. So yeah, I would be in favor of presenting these things, as long as they are not against the national funding rules.
What is seen as a core part of a project? For example, developing a new automation robotic platform and subcontracting out of the validation of the platform. Would the validation of the final machine a too critical part to subcontracting out? As the validation is only a step toward the end of the project, it would, without subcontracting, not be easy to integrate the validating properly into work packages, which may make subcontracting more viable.
Yeah, in general, although it's again very specific for the project, but in general, having someone subcontracted for validation purposes, in most of the cases, I would say that's okay. as long as you are not disclosing your core competence to subcontractor and revealing some of your business secrets. So if you give them black box and say if you put on input A, you should get on output B, then it's fine. But if you give them a possibility to get more insights in what they are doing, then it's I would say primarily dangerous for you and your intellectual property, not so much for the Eurostars and the project. And I would be very cautious about that. But again, talking generally, not knowing what it's all about, I would say that subcontracting for validation purposes is okay.
So we have follow-up question about these 30 months and 8-person months. So we are working on 10 work packages simultaneously because there is all connected in the results. Therefore, we have work packages take longer and we do not fully commit in a full-time employee to each work package. Would in this case 30 months yet 8-person months be justified?
Yeah. Again, difficult to say without the broader picture, what is it about, but in essence, I don't like having, but that's me. That's not the rule. I would either go for some temporary support or having another partner who is able to do that just in order to speed up. Because it's not only about the project and evaluation and assigning a score to the project. It's also about the competition, because competition is never sleeping. Competitors are always developing something. So can you really afford to wait for 30 months for a job that can be done within 12 or 15 months? Because you are losing 15 or 18 months in time to market. So that's, I mean, even if everything is ideal and nobody is blaming you for having such a low workforce engagement, in terms of competition and getting to the market, that's working against you. So I would like to speed it up. Would it be my project? I would try to speed it up by acquiring some additional workforce temporarily or full-time or whatever, or finding another partner who can help me speed things up and get to the market as soon as possible.
And
but, sorry, just one final sentence. Your project certainly wouldn't be killed because of having 8-person months over the period of 30 calendar months. So if that's the only weakness of the project, then your project will most probably pass. But again, not only in terms of valuation, but also in terms of future commercialization, I would try to squeeze it as much as possible.
Okay. Do we need to provide scientific data and reference papers to support our project idea and research objectives? If we reference all this information, it will be hard to read.
Yeah, as I said before, don't be too detailed. Don't go into very specific details of your proposal, because people reading and assessing your applications are familiar with the subject area, and they don't really need, and even if you want, that's kind of information that you don't want to share with too broad audience. So there is no need, at least to my opinion, to share detailed scientific data, but you can give some hints, some ideas, highlights based on what scientific findings you want to develop your solution.
And what is the most practical way to provide evidence behind our reasonings?
Yeah, I would do it, and that's also something which I haven't mentioned during my presentation, but that's a good practice which I would like to suggest to all of you. If you are adding technical annex to the application, the technical annex is a document where you can go into more details. But if you do that, put a reference in your application in the text of application, as presented in technical annex, page this or picture that or table this, so that experts who need some additional explanation can go to technical annex and check what you have written there. If they don't need such explanation, then they will not have it in the application, and application will be concise and easy to read.
Excellent. So there was one more question about can participant participate in multiple projects, and from funding agency perspective, it is allowed, but it's a question about your capacity, because in case all these projects can be improved, will you be able to implement them? So please be aware of this factor, and also, yeah, you need like write a very good proposal, and if your attention is divided between three different proposals, for example, it may be difficult to reach the good one, so to speak. So then maybe you can also put some ideas behind this, but in general it is allowed. But always contact your national funding body to understand specifics, and if you will be able to actually do this.
Yeah, I would just come back to what I said before about the engagement of workforce. So if you have 5 people in a company, within a year they can produce 60 person months of work. And then if you have them participating in 3 different projects with 80 person months, it's obvious that they cannot do that. And even if it will be 60 person months, who will be there working to generate some revenues? So be realistic in defining that, and be fair to your partners in consortiums, because if you apply for 3 different projects in 3 different consortiums and you don't have sufficient resources, then you will have to say to 1 or 2 consortiums, sorry guys, but I'm going to another project which is more interesting for me, and bad luck for you, I'm not able to participate, which I don't think it's fair towards the others.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nedan. I don't see any unanswered question. I think we have already answered everything, and Secretariat also in behind the scenes answered more like Eurostars practical questions. So there is one more. It's thank you. There's lots of thank yous going on also.
Yeah, if I may take just a minute for one private matter. After such webinars, I get a number of invitations to get connected on LinkedIn. And for me, LinkedIn is just a tool to connect people which are in position to work together to cooperate on something, and not just a collector's album, so who has more pictures. So if you send me an invitation, I usually don't answer to such invitations, because it doesn't make sense to get in touch with someone who you never saw before, you know nothing about that person, and there is no chance that you will be working with such a person. So it's not me being arrogant, it's just being practical. If on the other hand, somebody of you has a collector's ambitions and wants to have my picture in his album, then write me in the invitation. I'd like to have your picture in my album, and then I'll accept the invitation, although chances are that we are not going to meet and work together. So I hope this is also reasonable for all of you, and that it doesn't show me as a bad person. I'm just trying to be as practical as possible. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Nedan, so much for this presentation, and thanks Secretariat for organizing and doing the background work. And of course, huge thank you everybody who participate, who ask questions, and have a very, very successful application process. And we are waiting for your results. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.